Hello, D5 community. I'm Dr. Ross, Superintendent of Schools of Lexington Richland School District 5, and I want to welcome you to our Lunch and Learn. We're hosting 3 Lunch and Learns. This is the first that we had to first postpone one that was due on Tuesday, and that will be October 15th for the Chapin community. You're welcome to attend any of these, but we want to kind of hone in on specific questions and concerns in which this referendum would impact you. I want to first start off by saying to our community, thank you for all of the help, all of those who uh, wanted to lend a hand to help out the schools and help out our families and students during this storm, whose impacts are still with us. And so my heart goes out to all of those who are still without power or still dealing with the impacts of Hurricane Helene. Our community really showed its strength during this time, and we continue to pray and have the hearts and minds go out to those in need. The point of this meeting, of this Lunch and Learn, is to share with you a upcoming referendum that will be on the ballot on November. South Carolina Ethics Act informs that we're not to use this moment or these resources to share a specific side of a for the referendum or not, but to answer questions. So a lot of the presentation that will come today will be in response to questions that have already been submitted. And if there are new questions, we're going to give you an opportunity at the end of the presentation to ask those questions that we have not. So there'll be an opportunity for you to submit questions along the way. So I do want to share that at any time, if you have a cell phone or another computer that you can look at, you can go to our website, www.lexridge5.com/bond, or you can use the QR code here on the screen so that you can look at the information for yourself. I am a superintendent, but first, I'm a husband and a father and a resident in Lexington Richland 5. I worked in Chapin as a principal and live in Irmo. So this is home for me. And as a result, I am here to make sure that we're doing things for the betterment of our community. But I'm also a Rotarian, and we have a 4-way test. That first test is it the truth? And so the questions that we pose today, when you hear responses, ask yourself, is it the truth? And we're going to provide our facts, our sources, so that you're making an informed decision so for our community. We say that it's our children's future, and it's going to be our choice in the direction that we go. So I want to start off with a big part of a referendum has to do with facilities. In August of 2023, and you can see this on our website, we presented it to the community on October 23rd of 2003. But on August of 2023, MPS, McMillan, Patterson, and Smith identified $182 million worth of facility improvements, and they rated these. The lower the score, the more important it was, or the higher the priority of improving those facilities. And so you can see the majority of the facilities that are need the most work are in the Dutch Fork and Irmo attendance area. It's important to see this map to understand what District 5 is and our boundaries. How if you look 30, 40 years ago, the majority of our students were in the Irmo area, and that's where those buildings are. And so, and in the 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, the majority of our students were here in the Dutch Fork area. And now our students, so the majority of our in-person enrollment is out in the Chapin area. And so how do you address $182.1 million of facility improvements? And so I would like to answer those questions that have come in about school funding and taxes. We've tried to take a different approach in explaining this. And I think as a teacher, you're always looking for better ways to explain the topic at hand. I think one of the first tax facts we have to address is that primary homes are not taxed for school operations. One of the questions was, well, what do you mean that primary homes? Well, if primary homes are not taxed for school operations, what are? I think we need to start with in 2006, the General Assembly passed Act 388. So if you were in our district prior to 2006, 4% assessed properties, which are your primary homes, paid for school operations. After 2006, with the passage of Act 388, the operations of schools were no longer through 4% assessed properties or your primary homes. Now, what does contribute? Your cars, your boats, your trailers, and 6% assessed properties, such as businesses or rental properties. And so those are the properties that go into your school operations. But your 4%, the house, and so in a community like Lexington 5, which has we call that bedroom community, has a lot of homes. That was a major shift in school operations. So let's look at our operations. So when we're talking about our 10% or our 6% properties, our houses, I mean, not our rental properties, cars, boats, trailer, mobile homes, and businesses, and those, it accounts for 35% of our operations. 64% of our operation comes from the state of South Carolina. We have about 1% that is in grants. And so if you look at last year's, this is last year's budget, our total operating dollar amount was $215 million. $215 million. I will note, going back to the truth, this has not been audited. This is the data we will send to the auditor, but it won't be audited until December. However, these are the funds in our generating operating account. So you say, well, not Ross, well, how do you spend that? Well, 88% of these general operating funds go to salaries and benefits, increase of insurance and health care and salaries, utilities, and then the services that we use for everything from legal services to special ed services to lawn care. All of that will come out of utilities and services. Supplies for the classroom and the schools, and then equipment. Well, you can see if you have $182 million of identified needs, where do you get it out of this bucket? What do you cut in order to take care of that? And so we have another tax that is on the community, and that is called your debt service tax. The debt service tax is through the School Bond Act. Now, the School Bond Act, which goes back to 1951 in our state, the School Bond Act allows you to use these funds for four main purposes: to renovate schools, to equip schools, to construct schools, and to repair schools. You can't use this money for raises or to pay for insurance or health care, or these have to be for those four main reasons. Now, according to the School Bond Act, excuse me, school districts can borrow up to 8% of its total assessed value. 8% of its total assessed value can be borrowed. And so looking at the last Lexington County auditor's numbers, our 8% total assessed value is $52.7 million. $52.7 million. Now, if you wanted $53 million to address the $182 million problem, you would need a bond referendum. You need a bond referendum to go over that $52.68 million 8% threshold. I hope that makes sense. The 8% limit is the most that you can have out at one time. Now, we had a storm come through, and so if there was any damage from that's why the School Bond Act allows you to sell GO bonds or general obligation bonds so that you can service the construction, the renovation, the equipment, or the repairing of schools. Now, another question's been asked, well, you're proposing a referendum and you said it doesn't increase the debt service tax rate. Well, there is a threshold that we have with our current debt service amount of taxes that are paid, and that is $400 million. About at $400 million, we cannot amortize our debt over time at our current tax rate. We would have to increase the taxes there in order to service the debt. So it's important to understand bonds pay for the construction, renovation, equipping, and repairing. The taxes from your debt service services those bonds. Bonds pay for the repairing of the schools. The tax services that debt of the bonds. So when you put it all together, how do you take care of a $182 million problem when the general fund cannot address it, and the 8% capacity can also not address it? Well, that brings us to the 2024 bond referendum. We're asking $240 million of bonds to be sold in three increments, three $80 million increments. It will be under the threshold in order to raise taxes, but it will allow us to go after these issues, as well as some other identified instructional and safety issues that were not identified in the NPS study. So another tax facts, the bond referendum will not increase the tax rate. And that is why it's so important to understand that we are not going over this $400 million threshold. We're not at the $300 million, at the 240. And the purpose is to be under that threshold to address the needs that we have. So if you look at it, bond referendum will not increase the tax rate. You can see here are the $240 million total of the projects. They're in order of priority. The highest priority that we have, all the way to the lowest priority. And you can see even in the question it says if funds remain. So the highest priority all the way to the lowest. With the referendum, you can see how many bonds would be, the amount of bonds that would be issued per year. Without the referendum, we have updated this form with our financial advisor, and you can see how much we would have here. The amount of taxes that would need to be, or the tax rate that would need to be levied for debt service would be 69.5 mils for both scenarios. One question that came in says that if the referendum was not approved, the tax rate will drop and ultimately lower taxes. And I think what's important is to ask, is it the truth? In order for the tax rate to drop, you would not issue this debt. So you would not address the facility needs at all. That means no maintenance. We'll be deferring maintenance or deferring fixing anything in order for this to go down. Our plan is to continue, whether it passes or not, to try to fix as many of these problems as possible with HVAC, with safety, with security. So I think it's important that we are given a realistic picture of the reality of the plan for School District 5. So this is the structure that you would see for both scenarios. So let's look at that in the math so that you can do your own math. On our webpage, you can see in multiple presentations. This is our amortization schedule of the debt. What's important to know is this line here. This line is the We call this that tax threshold. Crossing the line that you see here would require an increase of taxes. Being under the line would mean that we would not need to increase the taxes, and you actually could get more capacity to borrow. That's why with the referendum, we were saying you could go almost up to 400 million, but we have put our amortization of the bond referendum over 20 years at $240 million to be paid. So, Dr. Ross, what about these years here? Well, we can go really deep into the sinking fund, which is on the debt service side, but we use those funds to pay down this without raising the taxes there. And if you want to hear more about the sinking fund, welcome you to look at our September board meeting where I did a presentation along with our CFO, Heather Tucker, our bond attorney, Franny Hauser, and our financial advisor to explain how we brought this down. Without a referendum, if a referendum fails, you see we can still stay under the tax threshold here, and with our borrowing of the $10 million and the annual maintenance, we would use these funds to take care of our building. A little less capacity to do anything else, but we would still be able to maintain the 69.5 meals and debt service. So I wanted you to see the math. All school districts under the School Bond Act issue this debt every year for annual maintenance of our facilities, but we are limited at that $52 million, $52.6 million. The next tax fact: the bond referendums are for infrastructure only. I think it's important when people hear, well, $240 million. One of the questions is, why don't you use that to give to teachers or to raise salaries for support staff? And the answer is you can only use that for those four purposes: to repair, to construct, to renovate, and to equip the buildings. You cannot use those for salaries. So this is the referendum that is on the ballot, and this is being put towards the community on November the 5th. And so we wanted you to be informed of those tax facts. If I did not answer the questions that were submitted already, please, we'll have an opportunity for you to submit more questions about taxes and school district funding. So the next series of questions was about rezoning, and I wanted to address those specifically in the Dutch Fork area. Rezoning will occur fall 2026. So regardless of what happens, we would not rezone next year. Because of the structures that are changing and the moves that are changing, we want to make sure that everyone is prepared for those. Moving students is not as easy as just moving to different buildings. You want to make sure that those facilities are ready and prepared for the special needs of all students, for the ADA needs, for the instructional needs, and then, as a lot of people in the community said, the emotional needs. So having time for families and students to visit the other schools, to know those new principals, to know those new areas, we want to make sure that we have time to plan all of that. The outcome of the referendum will determine how we will rezone. And rezoning stops at the Chapin Dutch Fork line. Right? Dutch Fork students will not be rezoned into Irmo schools. So we want to respond to these questions, and then I want to go into a little deep dive about it. What's important to know is this is our current instructional structure. Our board voted to move to either one of these two formats based on if the referendum passes or if the referendum fails. Our current structure, and I think it's okay without violating ethics to say it's not sustainable. The model at Crossroads takes in 10 elementary schools from 10 different communities, moves them to 2 middle schools and into 2 high schools. We have no fifth grade in our Chapin Elementary School model. So we're supporting multiple different models. In our new models, we will have fifth grade at all 13 elementary schools. We won't have intermediate schools anymore. We'll move to 5 middle schools. And all of our high schools will be 9 through 12. And both models keep Spring Hill High School as a magnet. Now, how your child moves is important because this just shows structure. It does not show the movement of people. And so I want to talk about that. When we look at, this is the 45th day from last year. We'll update it with the 45th day from this year. But our goal is to have schools at about 80% capacity. Why 80%? Why not 100%? Well, the needs of our students, just like in all parts of the country where people dealing with education, it is harder when at max capacity to meet the individual needs of students. Students with special needs, emotional disabilities, learning disabilities, behavioral issues, students who have sensory needs. And so and then just your general education student who would like an extra class of an art or a lab of computer science. So if we can bring our buildings to 80% capacity, we believe we can have the class sizes and the programs that deliver the outcomes that Lexington Richland 5 is accustomed to. What you see is that in Chapin, as I try to move the fifth grade back into Piney Woods, into Chapin, and into Lake Mary, these schools are already over that 80% mark. So instead of building a new elementary school in Chapin, because we want to use those funds to fix the schools in Irmo and Dutch Fork, we will look at the next closest elementary school in the attendance zone. The next closest elementary school is Ballantyne. And so I want to talk a little bit about this, specifically for Dutch Fork, because Ballantyne Elementary School currently sits in the Dutch Fork attendance zone. It will now be moved to the Chapin attendance zone. Now, by moving the whole school into the Chapin attendance zone, that's where the lines have really been impacted. It's right here at Ballantyne. Now, areas like Milford Park, for instance, which are very close to Ballantyne, will continue to be at Ballantyne Elementary School, but now be zoned for Chapin schools. We have an option, but in order to do our options, I need to explain what happens at Ballantyne for those who are being rezoned. In order to move students from Chapin Elementary into Lake Mary and Lake Mary into Ballantyne, as we zone east, we zone in this direction, we need to rezone students from Ballantyne into Oak Point, from Ballantyne into River Springs, into Dutch Fork Elementary School, and into H.E. Corley. We looked at some areas that are kind of right on the line. I want to speak specifically to Twin Gates Road, to Marina Road area, to the A.J. Amick, because if you follow A.J. Amick, it runs right across into Bickley, right where Ballantyne is located. And in those areas, we determined we could keep those areas going to Ballantyne Elementary if we made Lake Murray and Chapin Elementary bigger. Currently, Chapin Elementary has 8 portables. Lake Murray has 16 portables in use. Chapin Elementary has 8 portables in use. Lake Murray Elementary has 16 portables in use. And our goal is to expand these schools to make it bigger. And by make it bigger, you have to rezone less children, and more families will be able to stay in their current area, which would leave less students to be rezoned out of Ballantyne Elementary. So those are the specific areas that Twin Gates, Marina Road, A.J. Amick, with a bigger Chapin Elementary and a Lake Murray Elementary, they would stay at Ballantyne. If the referendum fails, we have to use the existing facilities to rezone. In the Twin Gates, Marina Road, and A.J. Amick area, they would go to H.E. Corley. So it's using our existing facilities to take care of our rezoning needs. Rezoning is not easy. And as a leader, my job is not to just do the easy work. It's to take on the very difficult issues. So we try to get this information out to the community to see those options, and so that by 2026, when we make these moves, that everyone would be informed of the impacts. Some of the questions about rezoning had to deal with, if my child is already at that school, how does that work? Or is there grandfathering? Well, the numbers in terms of the movement of students doesn't allow every student that is rezoned to stay at their current school. But we do have what's called preferred choice, meaning that when space is available, the preferred choice, because we're a choice district, goes to those schools, those families who are rezoned away. But also, you continue at your school to the highest grade. There's a lot of questions. Do I have to go back to another school? No. Once you're at that school, you continue to your highest grade. So once you're there, you're going to continue into your highest grade. We're talking about the new families coming in. Here are maps. These two maps will kind of show geographically what these two structures. So with no referendum, you can see how Lake Murray is, we have to use our existing footprint of Lake Murray. We have to use the existing footprint of Chapin and how Piney Woods expands. You can see in Ballantyne, how Ballantyne Elementary area changes without the referendum or with the referendum. Now, sometimes it's harder to see on these maps. So we do have on our website an opportunity for you to actually put in your address. We went through hundreds of thousands of parcels, bus routes to make these maps. And so you can see how it impacts you. I want to share 4 areas which we have changed on that mapping system to adequately represent what happens at the high school. And this is specifically areas that will be moving from the Chapin zone into the Dutch Fork zone. If the referendum passes, there is no change. If the referendum fails, it is our proposal to take these 4 areas, and move them into Dutch Fork High School. As we look to alleviate pressure in Chapin at Chapin High School, these are the options. Now, one of the questions was, Dr. Ross, why not zone Spring Hill? And I want to go back to this model here. Spring Hill is a national model for magnets, nationally recognized, nationally recognized, and very unique benefit. And I know a lot of people may disagree with me on rezoning Spring Hill. The recommendation is that we would take the Academy for Success out of Spring Hill, and move it to the Rich Lex Education Center. By doing that, we could increase choice from the Chapin area into Spring Hill. And that's the way you could relieve Chapin High School, through choice from Chapin to Spring Hill. Now, without the referendum, the Academy for Success has to stay at Spring Hill. So we still don't we still don't get those seats. And that's what brings us to this model, where we would have to create an opportunity for space at Chapin High School by rezoning these 4 areas into Dutch Fork. Referendum passes, we don't touch these areas. They stay in Chapin because Spring Hill would relieve the pressure at Chapin. The referendum fails, then these areas would go to Dutch Fork. We'll fill in our current facilities until all of our facilities are full. So you can see Area 1, that's the Chelsea Park area. You see Area 2 is the Rolling Creek. Area 3 is courtyards of Rolling Creek, and Area 4 is Waterfall. But again, you can see this clearly by going to our rezoning options and seeing with a referendum where you would be zoned to, without a referendum where you would be zoned. Because this was a change from the later presentations that we've been given, I wanted to spend time to explain why these changes were made. So please go on our website, use these QR codes, use that referendum or without referendum locator to see how this impacts you. So I want to talk a little bit about the bond projects. Again, this is maintaining this at 69.5 meals. And we have broken these projects into 2 areas, safety and productivity. So I'd like to talk about the safety needs. Our safety team, Dr. Harris and his team, Student Services and Planning, are 24/7 working on securing our schools and our campuses. The realities of a school leader today is that this is an ever-present issue. We work with our SROs, and we have SROs, we have security staff, we have expectation coaches, campus monitors. We're working, but we would like to create a buffer for our schools that don't have what's called a security vestibule. We're investing in more screening devices for weapons, but the ultimate goal is to identify threats before they get to campus. We would like to invest in enhanced security systems, and which includes camera systems that identifies weapons, that identifies unidentified people before they get to the campus or when they're within the campus. And so if you're an SRO, imagine you have a school that has 53 doors. Having as much resources as possible in this day and age is going to help us be effective. Like I said, again, we operate schools 180 days a year, getting 17,000 students to school and back home 180 times is our #1 priority. Part of helping with that is getting students in the building. And right now at Chapin Elementary School and Lake Mary Elementary School, a lot of our students are not even within the footprint of the building. They're outside in portables. This referendum would bring them into hallways, bring them into buildings. It would expand the existing buildings, adding 20,000 square feet to Lake Mary Elementary School, which would take those, they have more, 16 used portables and areas for growth would now come inside. At Chapin Elementary, it's 16,000 square feet that would be added to Chapin Elementary. It would take those 8 portables and bring them inside. And that is what, by expanding that, you draw less students into the Ballantyne area. So the Twin Gates area, the Marina Road area, the A.J. Amick area, those areas would stay at Ballantyne because Chapin Elementary and Lake Murray Elementary would be expanded. One of the things that if you attend, if your children go to Dutch Fork Elementary, I don't think I have to say anything here, but if you're not familiar with what's going to happen at Dutch Fork Elementary, if you drive past on Broad River Road, you'll see stakes in front of the building. Those stakes are indicating where the new road will go when Broad River Road is expanded. That will bring it past the flagpole. An elementary school in that proximity to a 4-lane highway with the student runners that we experience in that area is a huge safety challenge, probably our number one safety challenge. We've already had close calls. Not proud to say that, but that's the truth. And moving that school into a safer location is my number one priority. But if your children go here, you see this. You see how tough it is to operate an elementary school in this area. We've identified a new site. Once that site is closed on, we'll share that with the community, which will put this in a safer location. We will still use the current building at Dutch Fork Elementary, which would be the Rich Lex Center. But this is a preliminary design of what the new Dutch Fork Elementary would look like. Current Dutch Fork Elementary doesn't have an elevator, so some of the ramps are not in ADA compliance. It's a opportunity to really service the students at in the Dutch Fork Elementary area. I let out the presentation with $182 million of needs and repairs. You can go online and see all of those on our facilities condition assessment was presented to the community October 23rd. 11,100 incidences that were rated. These are significant, and these are growing every day. With the storm, your families are facing it. We're facing it. Inflation is impacting all of us. So trying to address these needs so that our students and staff can come to a building and learn in a safe and healthy environment. And then there was a question, what are the educational benefits of indoor practice facilities? Is this the best use of our tax dollars when so much is needed due to overcrowding in our elementary schools? And I wanted to share that while it is covered, it is not indoor. This has been brought to us by our sports medicine staff. Remember, this project takes place if funds remain, but we're struggling with heat acclimatization of our student athletes and band, ROTC, any of our students who have to spend extended time outside for their activity. So by covering a field, by providing students to be in shade, you can reduce what's called the wet bulb temperature that those children are exposed to. By reducing the wet bulb, it allows them to get that heat off of them and become heat acclimatized. It takes 15 days of being outside in the air in those conditions to be acclimatized to the heat. With our warmer summers, the amount of time we're losing to heat acclimatize our students, athletes, or our musicians, or NJRTC students becomes shortened. So we believe this categorizes as a safety item, but it's at the end of the priority if funds remain at the completion of the other projects. So let's talk about a little bit about productivity. I think as all parents are asking those questions, are my children prepared for their futures, which is different from our past? And I want to talk a little bit about their futures and our past, and that's Nursery Road and Harveston West. In the, I think early to mid 70s, there was a model of no classrooms. I mean, no walls in the pods of the for instruction, and we have since left that model. But if you go into Nursery Road and Harveston West, there are no walls there. We're standing at a kind of an odd angle here, so you may not see it, but you're actually looking into two classrooms, and there's no divider there. If you stand in one, you can hear the instruction of the other. You can run through it. Even with COVID, these pods were very hard um, to socially do the distancing from because there are no walls there. So with needed upgrades, especially at Nursery Road, with we have some structural things that we need to do with the utilities and water and sewage. We would bring walls to these buildings. Um, Now you say, well, how does that look? If you look at Leaphart, if you're in the Irmo area or Chapin Elementary School in the Chapin, those are the exact same footprints, but they now have walls. And so that's one of the projects there to increase the productivity at Harveston West and Nursery Road. We have a very historic building in our school district, which is the Rich Lake site. Currently, the Dutch Fork Elementary School. We would bring the Academy for Success, Adult Ed, and 5 into this building here. And this will allow us to upgrade our adult ed programs, fully serve our Academy for Success students with career readiness programming, and then provide a space for our 5 students to have a home for testing, for small group, for tutoring, and for their school activities. So we're going to be using all of our footprint within D5, but this would allow at this historic site a really new pathway, really cool pathway for our students in those programs. Chapin High School would receive an auditorium. It would be attached to their fine arts area. They're the only high school without a auditorium space, so they would get an auditorium for to support their theatrical set design curriculum. Irmo High School would embark on a new process for creating entrepreneurs. It's called a small business incubator. And we talk a lot about students going to college or 2-year, but we need to talk more about students being business owners, entrepreneurs. So in a small business incubator, you start a business and you run that business within the school for 2 years. It helps you launch, helps you learn those what works and what doesn't work in business and entrepreneurship. You can test, you can actually improve other businesses or test products. But an area where you see the highest percentage of poverty of our students, helping students be job creators is one of the fastest ways out of poverty. It takes the current cafeteria, turns it into a small business incubator, and would build a new student center cafeteria on the new Irmo High School that's being built. So if you've gone down St. Andrews Road, you'll see those beams coming up. And so that's coming out of 8% money that is being done. So the bond referendum would add on to that for entrepreneurial courses. Let's talk about Dutch Fork. Dutch Fork has been a leader in the STEM program in the state of South Carolina, and it's time to enhance that. It's time for its 2.0. We have been very proud of the STEM program at Dutch Fork High School, and we would like to add its future, prepare it to its future. which is AI. And so to provide it with the artificial intelligence lab, working with the University of South Carolina for digital solutions and computer science, this is the future that we want to prepare our students for. And so we want them to have those necessary tools. So major upgrades are due to Dutch Fork High School. The bond referendum will provide for those upgrades, but in addition, allow a digital solutions and AI lab for Dutch Fork High School. And I always say this, I don't think anybody really cheers or waves the banner for the DO, but you may not know that part of our current building is condemned due to reoccurring mold. And it's just delayed maintenance on as we deal with this $182 million need. So this referendum would include a new administrative office, but training our teachers and our staff for the needs that we have in our buildings today, whether it's increase in special needs or increase in identification of autism or Asperger's or increase of dealing with behavioral problems or needs and social needs, and all of those, teaching and learning has changed. How do you teach a class that has 8 different reading levels in one class? That exists in our buildings across the district. And so having a place where we would do our professional development for our staff would be here on the current site of the district office. And then as our nation is challenged with upgrading its infrastructure, its roads, its bridges, its airports, its power grids, as we see with the linemen here, its water treatment. Our students need to be at the forefront of upgrading our nation's infrastructure. And I know a long time we've talked about all students go to a 4-year college, but we're working now where students can have many different paths to success, and the technical careers are just that. So our Cape Center has advanced technical studies, but we want to expand it to that true blue collar work that is so much needed. And as we host our utilities companies from Dominion and Mid Carolina with the linemen, see just how important that work is. We need our students to be first and foremost on that. So that's what this program is. It will be located by the current Center for Advanced Technical Studies, or Cape Center, to expand to have these programs. So that's the referendum being presented to you. You can see all the projects and their cost estimates. You can see what the year of the borrow, the amounts that we have, and the tax rate that is required to service the debt for these capital needs. And so the School Bond Act allows us to sell those bonds to service these needs. So with that, we'll leave it to your questions, and our communications team will be here. If I did not answer all the questions that have been submitted, then we'll certainly address those, and then any new questions that may have arisen, we'll like to take those. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. McElveen, Laura McElveen from Communications, for any questions that we may have.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. We do have a couple. So like I said, while we are answering these, if any of the others come in, I will, of course, prompt those to you, and we'll get those answered as well. The first question that we have is, are primary homes taxed for bonds?
Primary homes are taxed for bonds, but not for operations, correct. So primary homes will be taxed for bond referendums. Now, what we are presenting is with the bond or without the bond, the same millage rate. Yes, your 4% property does pay a debt service.
Okay, next question we got, for rising K-5 students for fall of 25? Will there be more options to have them start at their new school so that they won't have to transfer after just 1 year?
That's a great question. We are a choice district, and you can certainly, once the referendum is determined, yes or no, and you see what the rezoning plan is, you can always apply for choice to do that. Our goal is with the movement of so many students, we want to make sure that the programs are there and the specific needs are there. Some of our students, and I'm just not going to give too personal business about individualized education plans or health plans, but require a lot of equipment when they move. They require staffing when they move. They require expertise when they move. And so if it's a student with whether it's intellectual or behavior or mental or emotional or physical challenges, we want to make sure all of those programs are in place that year, that 2020, um, 2024-25 school year. I'm sorry, 2025-26 school year. 2025-26 school year helps us do that.
Okay, and the next question, I think you touched on it a little bit with this last response that you just gave, but during the presentation, it was mentioned that no children would be moved to IRMO schools, but the H.E. Corley elementary students are moving to Crossroads Middle, which is part of the IRMO cluster. Will there be choice options for H.E. Corley students to move to Dutch Fork Middle instead? Or will there be magnet programs available at the middle school level that would provide those options?
That's a great point. I want to go back to see if I can go back in the presentation just to kind of highlight that movement there. Currently, H.E. Corley goes to Crossroads. It goes there now, and then it goes to Dutch Fork for 7th and 8th. The same happens in both scenarios. H.E. Corley goes to Crossroads. They just stay there those 2 years. But what I would like to draw your attention to is in both scenarios, the middle schools are smaller. There are less students at the middle schools. And we think that's important because all levels are important, but certainly at the middle levels, being able to meet a smaller group, a smaller class size, it truly helps us in meeting the needs of all of our students. So I just wanted to make that distinction. Yes, all of our students, H.E. Corley currently goes to Crossroads. Yes, they stay there those 2 more years, but all of your schools are now smaller. So with choice options, it allows a lot more opportunity there.
All right, and if Crossroads becomes a middle school, will they be getting money to update the facility for middle school sports and fine arts?
Very good question. We're proposing for our board to take up on Monday $1 million, $1 million for fine arts equipment. Another $500,000 for additional security matters, but $1 million for band and orchestra equipment. Now, the question will be, if it does not pass, you see the financial obligation we're in. I don't know where you get the money from if there is no referendum. We have our CAFRs online. We have been audited by the OIG and our third party. If anyone could come and show where there's extra funds to do something with other than what we have presented, I asked them to present the truth, to present the facts. But the reality is, without the funds, we can't update the facilities.
Okay, and the last question that we received, I believe I can answer it, Dr. Ross. They were wondering if this information will be emailed out. And what I will tell everybody is this Lunch and Learn is being recorded and it's going to be posted on our website at www.lexrich5.org on our bond referendum page. And on that bond referendum page, there's lots and lots of information, basically everything that Dr. Ross has presented here, the tax facts, the projects that are included in the referendum, the safety focused features, the productivity focused features, school rezoning options where you put in that address to see where you will go to school if there is a referendum, if there's not a referendum, and frequently asked questions. We've received lots of questions already, and you'll find answers to a number of things on our website. So that has a wealth of information. We also have a brochure on there that has been shared with the Irmo News for people that get that newspaper. It's also been shared at events like the Chapin Labor Day parade. So that's also on there. If people wanted to share that with their neighbors or their friends, all of that information is on our website. We also have 2 more Lunch and Learns that are planned. One for October 9th, which is more centered for the Irmo community, and the other is for our Chapin community, which is on October 15th. So all of this information, the resources, the references, all can be found on our website, lexrich5.org/bond. Will give you everything that you need. All of this information is right there. And like I said, this recording will be posted on our website as well. So if anybody missed it or there's lots of information and you want to go back and look at it, you can certainly do that as well.
Thank you, Laura.
And I think that is, oh, wait, we've got one more question, and then I think this will give us enough time to wrap it up for our 1 o'clock deadline, Dr. Ross. Last question, will any of these construction changes to the building be able to increase the capacity for more 4K classrooms? The competitiveness for our district is unlike others in the Midlands. Everybody wants to be here. So would we have any, be able to increase the capacity for 4K?
I would like to turn it to Dr. Harris if he's available. I know there's there's plans for Piney Woods, but I'd like him to speak on it if he can.
Absolutely. Thank you. Great question for that. And that's certainly an area we continue to monitor about what else can we do to serve more of our 4K eligible students. So you're right, Dr. Ross, we are looking very heavily at least a classroom expansion at the Piney Woods site. I would say at this particular time, as when the dust begins to kind of settle with our schools, we're certainly going to be paying a lot of attention to where space is available to in such a way that we might be able to serve additional classes at the 4K level. So while I don't have an absolute yes, I do have a yes in terms of paying attention to where space might be available once we have determined whether this moves forward the referendum or does not move forward in terms of the referendum. So that's my best response to that, but thank you so much for that question. And I certainly look forward to an opportunity to expand 4K because you're absolutely right, as I heard in the question, there is a great need throughout the district, and we certainly look forward to serving as many students as we can.
That is all the questions that I have, Dr. Ross, so I will turn it back over to you.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us for our Lunch and Learn. We really appreciate you taking this opportunity to engage with us. And as we look to accomplish 2 things, to ensure every student feels loved in our schools and every student has demonstrated academic growth in our schools. So they're prepared for their futures, which is much different from our past. So we will again post this information for your review. And again, thank you for joining us for our Lunch and Learn.